If you clicked on this video, I'm just going to make this very clear. I'm using the term modern audience not to define marginalized or diverse groups, but rather critiquing the standards set by gaming studios when using that term of the modern audience. I'm not going to throw generic stock images with a red box and use wrongful terms. Instead, this video is going to be a critique of the quality and mechanics of games in the industry that are excused by the term modern audience. So without further ado, let's begin.
The truth.
So hi everyone, it is I, your favourite internet disappointment, Optical, back with another video, and I'm sorry it took so long. I've really just been trying to figure out how to approach my style of content. After reviewing my videos, I realised that the one that I nailed the most was where I critiqued AAA gaming. And this same formula is going to apply when I critique gaming studios using the term modern audience to ship out poor quality games. Now, to be clear, there are some games for the modern audience that are very good, such as the Silent Hill 2 remake, Resident Evil 4 remake, or Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I say this because a lot about it is perfect. The design philosophy is very good, the story is engaging, the characters are all fine. But my main focus about the modern audience is when games are shipped in very poor quality broken messes. So a great example is Star Wars Outlaws. It was made for the modern audience and launched with an incredible amount of bugs, glitches, and an overall lack of polish to the title.
Welcome to the first ever open world Star Wars game.
To even get, on launch, a solid 120 frames, or even 90, you had to have an RTX 4090 card, which is around $1,500. And relatively, it's the same in the UK, it's £1,500. The fact that I would have to spend £1,500 to even get a second of the frames is absolutely ridiculous. And this goes to show why I'm making the argument that using the term modern audience for poorly polished games is becoming a very tiring term. So let's have a look at some games that are not so great that are for a modern audience. Let's talk about Concord. The mechanics are flawed, the graphics look fairly outdated, and there's an overall lack of support for the game. Now compare Concord to the first Overwatch game. I'm not counting Overwatch 2 because that was disastrous. But the first Overwatch game, it had engaging mechanics, engaging characters, and it had an overall level of polish, which meant that players could have a great time. It had a great system, although yes, the loot box system was flawed, and the fact that some heroes you couldn't all get for free, you had to figure out a way to earn them, and it was a very tiring process. And let's have a look at Silent Hill 2 remake. There was an incredible amount of polish for launch. The details and the environments was all perfect, and there was a lack of bugs across PlayStation and PC. And even then, Silent Hill 2 remake was described for a modern audience. Baldur's Gate 3, probably one of the best launches gaming had. It had an incredible amount of polish, relatively bug-free again, and it had an engaging story and mechanics. So why do I have a problem with the modern audience then? Well, the problem is that, to repeat myself, a large amount of games that are for the modern audience have some of the worst launches we've seen in gaming. They're filled with bugs, they've got hidden software that, although is meant to be a anti-mod or kernel for anti-cheat, severely impacts the performance of a game, but it pretty much also relies on the community to fix the bugs for them. But you should have to deal with that, right? Because you're the modern audience. You can put up with this because you're their target consumer. And target consumers / the modern audience should not have to deal with game-breaking bugs on the first day and have to wait months for patches to be released. Another issue with the modern audience is that when these games release, a lot of the larger studios don't even communicate with their community about the issues going on. And in my humble opinion, that should not be the case. If there is an issue with your game on launch, you need to communicate with it, and you need to have a sturdy amount of communication so the players or the consumers or even your modern audience can get an understanding of the flaws of your game. For example, let's talk about the modern audience for Borderlands 3. The campaign for Borderlands 3 was relatively flawed. The mechanics were great, but there were some issues with the overall narrative. And then, post-launch, we had some great DLC that expanded upon the story and made it a little bit more engaging for the players. But again, that was until months after launch. We had to wait months for the story to become engaging, despite the fact that the mechanics were probably the best we've seen in the Borderlands franchise. Concord, a live service game that was similar to Overwatch, was designed for a modern audience and somehow had the most basic mechanics you've seen in a hero shooter and the lack of communication for the post-launch support, which unfortunately did result in the closing of the studio that created it. Now, this year has been a massive year for layoffs, and I wish nothing but the developers well. It's been a very, very hard time for all developers, and we lost a lot of good ones. And as a studio, it should be your job to make sure that developers are understanding the kind of product that they're making and that they are happy with the direction. Not even that, but as a studio, it is your job to ensure that your title has an overall level of polish. And some of these games did not have that. But like I said, it's for the modern audience, so they should just be happy with whatever product they receive because it's catered to them. I suppose the point I'm trying to make as a consumer is that you can have a game dedicated to the modern audience, but make sure that it is polished and that it's an engaging overall product. And what do I mean by engaging products? Well, again, people shouldn't have to wait for months for patches to be released so that they have a playable title. If you have something that is a broken mess, it is not engaging, it is tiresome. Overall, there seems to be a growing trend that unfinished games are released, and it's up to the community to drop different mods that patch the bugs that are released. It is not the community's job to fix a game that you released in a poor state. Another great example of a game for a modern audience is the Dead Space remake. The level of polish was fantastic, and it overall was a relatively bug-free experience, which means that people were able to enjoy this without too many issues and really feel engaged with this product. This also ties into my complaint with the AAA gaming industry, in which people should not have to wait so long for patches. They shouldn't even have to wait for day one patches. If something released, it should be pretty fun. But instead, we have high-costing games with a lot of microtransactions, but you're the target audience, so you should just enjoy it. Another example, Kill the Justice League. It was a game for a modern audience and had some of the most bland mechanics we've ever seen in gaming. It was a live service made from the same people behind the Batman Arkham games, and actually resulted in a massive financial loss for Warner Brothers. Why? Because the product wasn't engaging, and we was required to pay for expansions, and nobody was happy about it. So that's my thought on the whole modern audience debacle. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Take care of yourselves, love yourselves, and peace out.